Out about this Iowa team?
And they're Iowa. I think with this team, I think when we're talking about complementary football, I think a lot of people just think, okay, you're really good on offense, really good on defense, really good on special teams. It's not about being good on one or the other. It's about how do you go through a game and go win games based on your formula to win games. And I don't think there's a team that does it better than Iowa. And they understand who they are more than most teams. They stick to who they are more than most teams. And then they beat you in every area. And that was a prime example last weekend against Wisconsin of exactly who Iowa is. And they're very efficient. They don't turn the ball over. Their special teams are a huge factor in how they win. I mean, a huge factor. Their special team doesn't get enough credit. And their defense is one of the best defenses in the country consistently. So they have a formula, and they do it really well.
Jay, with how close this rivalry has been the last few years, what would it mean for you to get your first win over Iowa?
Well, obviously it means a lot. It means a lot to our fan base. It means a lot to our players. It means a lot to our state, as it does Iowa's team. You know, they've had a lot of success in years past. I think we haven't won there since 1999. We've won 2 games and 2 times in 40. Is that right? 2 times in 40 games or 40 years. That's not a lot. So, we've got to work it out for us. We know how good they are. Game's been really close the last few years. That's what rivalry should be. I think both teams really respect the rivalry. The fan bases really do. Iowa's obviously had the upper hand over the years, but we're preparing to do everything we can to be 1-0. It's a 1-game championship season. It's a huge rivalry game. We've talked to our players what it means. They understand that. A lot of guys who've been here understand that. They know how close we've been, and we kind of do the history of the rivalry just like we do every other rivalry game. But we're going in to play a top 25 team. We know that. They know all the facts that everybody reports. But we just got to go in and play our best game, offense, defense, special teams. I mean, this team still has not played their best football yet, and that's my responsibility and my job to get them to. And hopefully they can do that on Saturday afternoon.
Bring anybody in or have anybody of the experienced players on the team talk about this rivalry and what it means to them?
Well, we explain what the rivalry is, and I think we have a lot of players on our team that understand that. I mean, you come to Minnesota to play in, I think, the most rivalry games in the Big Ten, right? I mean, that's what's so fun about playing here. I'm sure there's going to be more added as we get to the 18 teams, but we do what we call a captain's breakfast right before. It's really at our breakfast in the morning of the game. We always bring in a former player. And usually around the area to where they either live or where they can drive to, all over the country. We have alumni, east to west, north and south. So, but we always bring somebody in to talk about the importance of that game, a memory that they have about that game, whether it's a rivalry or not. But usually when we play in a rivalry game, we bring somebody in that, that has that connection to that rivalry, did something special in that rivalry game, and can really bring that to them. Ricky Foggy spoke last week. It did a great job. I mean, he was short, sweet, to the point. But those are the type of alumni we bring in to just I learned that from Jim Tressel when we were at Ohio State. He did that the morning of a game, and I thought that was a great idea to connect the alumni to your current players. And our alumni do a fantastic job with that captain's breakfast. And people drive hours and hours and hours to be at that. Some fly in for it just to spend 10 minutes with our football team and deliver a message. So that's something that we started here, and I think it's a great tradition that we have, and we'll continue to do that.
What makes Iowa's run game so tough to stop? I see they ran for 236 last week. So what's the challenge for you defensively there?
I think from like an average fan standpoint, this is no disrespect. It's like, well, all they do, like they just run the ball. Like I told you weeks ago, they're like, my dad's like, you just run the ball in the middle, and then you just run the ball on the outside. You're running the same play over and over. Well, technically, no. Iowa does such a great job of doing what they do, whether it's gap schemes, whether it's zone schemes, and they just keep it going. They make you fit it perfectly every time because the backs are really patient. I think what makes really special running backs is the ability to be patient. There's times not to be, and then there's times to be. And I think they have a great sense of what each individual play represents, whether it's zone schemes, whether it's gap schemes, what does it call for, and everybody finishing their blocks. And then sooner or later, it comes spitting out. You look at that game, and I mean, they have a huge 70-yard run for a touchdown. Their backs can finish it when they're in the open. You fit the gap and your eyes get in the wrong spot one time. They gap you out. They play a lot of 12 personnel, a lot of 13 personnel. They'll add a lot of people where every gap matters. And then they do some movements and shifts and some reverses and motions. You start doing that, and one guy gets his eyes out of the gap, it's a touchdown, because you're not going to sit there and play him in cover 2. You got to get people down in the box to be in those gaps, or you're going to be given 8-9 yards of carry. And that's when some guy doesn't have their eyes in the right spot and you take the cheese somewhere, it comes out for 70. And they just do it over and over and over and over and over. And eventually their defense is so good that even if they score one touchdown, that's going to be good enough to beat you. Right? So they can do it over and over and over with that consistency, because eventually you will make a mistake. And they control the ball. Now, if you're not controlling the ball, you can't do that. If your defense isn't good, you can't do that. Right? They can do that, because that's the complementary piece of that. And I've got so much respect for what they do and how they do it. And they don't get enough credit for it, because it is special because of how consistent they've been with that style for so long.